Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going big game hunting, looking to break down a behemoth in short order with the 1980 classic The Shining. Let's get to it. We open on sweeping shots of a mountain landscape and a car traveling on a road, snaking its way through the mountains. The car is carrying Jack Torrence to the Overlook Hotel, where he's scheduled for an interview to be the off-season caretaker. He comes highly recommended to old Stu, who explains their darn hotel is just too secluded to keep it open in the winter. The only road in gets covered in too much snow to keep it clear. His duties will include preventing nature from reclaiming the hotel to her bosom and coping with the crippling solitude. Luckily, Jack is just the kind of psycho for the job, looking for an opportunity to get his writing career off the ground. Just a brief word of warning about the prior caretaker who killed his family and committed suicide. And that should cover everything. Yeah, but you seem like a steady guy. Back at home, Jack's son Danny learns from his invisible mind friend Tony that Papa got the job. Right on cue, Wendy gets the call. Tony's not keen on the hotel, but he keeps his trap shut about why. We also learn about a silly little incident where Jack dislocated Danny's shoulder while intoxicated. But it set him on the straight and narrow, and he's been sober 5 months now. So home life is looking all good. Move-in day finally comes, and Jack's disdain for his family is palpable. As the maintenance crew prepares for lockdown, Wendy and Jack are taken on tour of the grounds. They see their apartment, learn about the hedge maze, and desecrated Indian burial ground, since it is a Stephen King story after all. They're also shown the dry bar, which is only mildly haunted. Here they meet old Dick Halloran, the head chef, who takes Wendy to get familiar with where she'll be fulfilling her womanly obligations. As he gives her a full accounting of all the dry goods, he secretly speaks to Danny through his mind. When they have a moment alone, he explains they have what his granny referred to as the Shining, a suite of unspecified telepathic abilities. He also warns him about the dark history of the hotel and the impact it can have on their kind. 1 month later, we see they're all settled into a routine of sleeping in late and losing themselves. After a healthy breakfast, Jack faces down his biggest fear, the blank page. But the creative process can't be rushed. Some Tuesday thereafter, Danny gets the heebie-jeebies when trekking past room 237, a subtle reference to the original office number of Pixar Studios. At the same time, Jack finally finds his muse, and the sheets become positively swollen with words and engorged with punctuation. But it's not ready yet. So when Wendy comes in to tell him about an impending snowstorm, he acts like a little bitch, blaming her for impeding his grand work. As the storm rages, Wendy finds she's only able to communicate with the outside world via the ham radio. She has a nice conversation with the sheriff's office, and then a couple of long-haul truckers ask her what she's wearing. As the days wear on, we find Jack sleeping less and less, and generally creeping everyone out. He admits to having dreams of killing his family, but he's all torn up about it, so that's good, right? Right, he seems to be okay. Danny comes in with a neck injury of indeterminate origin, and Wendy suspects Jack, so he saddles up at the bar, finding it willing to provide for his needs, and takes the opportunity to pity himself over his past transgressions. Then Wendy runs in to tell him a crazy woman from room 237 tried to strangle Danny. Upon investigation, Johnny finds a not-so-scary lady soaking in the tub, and he partakes of her supple flesh. But she pulls an oopsie-doo on him, turning gangrenous, and really grossing him out. When he gets back to his room, he reports nothing, and makes the suggestion that Danny's taken to self-harm. Halloran senses some trouble and asks the police to try to raise the family on the ham radio. Meanwhile, Jack returns to the gold room to find a swanky affair underway. He proceeds to get tanked up when Jeeves spills on him, and he's invited to the bathroom for a wipe down. The butler identifies himself as Grady, the caretaker who killed his family, but when Jack points this out, he insists that he's always been the butler and has always been at the hotel. But he did kill his family, but only because they acted against the hotel. And when children are naughty, it's often the overbearing mother to blame, implying that perhaps Jack has a job to do. This is a lot to ponder, which is nearly impossible with the constant racket of the ham radio. So Jack fixes that. When Halloran checks back in and learns there's been no contact, he decides to fly out to Colorado. Back at the hotel, Tony has taken over all communication for Danny. Wendy goes to consult with Jack and finds his novel. It's unique and experiments with the bounds of convention, but is somewhat redundant. Jack then arrives and they have a conversation about Danny. It takes a menacing tone when Jack becomes upset about her desire to take Danny to a doctor. Now seeing what Grady warned him about, and becoming concerned about the implications leaving would have for his contractual obligations regarding the hotel. Sensing her escalating distress, he tries to calm her and just tell her what's on his mind.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Oh, good.
I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
Oh, what? So she moves backwards and says she's just swinging a bat. If you run into it, it's your own fault. And he does. So she drags him to dry storage and locks him in. Then she goes to check on the snowcat and finds it disabled. Jack wakes up later groggy and Ghost Grady calls out to him, questioning his commitment to his task. Not wanting to look like a wimp in front of the guys, Jack insists he's both eager and able to slaughter his family. As a result of this reassurance, Grady lets him out. Back at the room, Tony talks with a very exaggerated vocal fry like a true intellectual.
Red rum.
And wakes up Wendy right as Johnny arrives to break down down the door. They retreat to the bathroom where she can only manage to squeeze Danny out the window. Then she waits. He breaks through and makes a strange Jackie Chan reference, and then she slices him up a bit. The sound of a snowcat outside announces Halloran's arrival, causing Jack to retreat. Halloran strides in, ready to save the day, and gets his sternum hewn. Then Jack takes off after Danny. As Wendy tries to catch up, she accidentally walks in on one of the Muppet babies giving a blowjob. Meanwhile, Danny has led Jack into the maze and gets a good enough lead to backtrack and dip out, creating a dead end. This sends Jack off in a random direction while Danny follows the trail back to the entrance. He meets his mom and they take the snowcat down the mountain while Jack slows down and eventually succumbs to the cold. As the movie comes to an end and the music plays, we slow pan down a picture that indicates that Jack's been here the whole time, which really doesn't make any sense. And that was The Shining, disliked by King but considered by many to be the greatest horror film of all time, with one of the richest and still active cosplay communities around. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.